No, go ahead. We are recording.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Shance, tell me what your dog's name is again.
It's Princeton, and
There
he
we
is
go.
being a noisy boy.
Princeton, is that where you went to school?
No, I got him at a shelter, and that was the name they had given him, and he seemed to kind of like it, and he goes by a lot of different nicknames, but his government name is Princeton.
Okay.
So not only do we have our guest today, which is Shancy Kelly, we have her dog Princeton with us as well. So lucky us on our show here.
Yeah.
And so right before we came,
one.
yeah, there we go. You know, right before we came on the air here, we were talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer and what's everybody's consensus here. Tony, I don't think I heard from you. We'll repeat what Shancy said, but I don't think we heard from you. Did you go to either of them this weekend?
I did not. I have not seen either movie, but I've read great reviews of each movie. My wife and I watched the previews for both, and we decided we want to see both of them.
Okay, so both of them.
Yeah.
In what order? Did you decide the priority here?
Probably Barbie first, get the lighthearted out first, and then the serious. I mean, Oppenheimer is heavy, but I know it looks like a brilliant movie, and the reviews so far have been fantastic for both movies overall, I think. Some people criticize Barbie, but I don't think they get it, right? So I'm looking forward to both of them. That's for sure. Have you now, Shancy? I forget. Did you say have you seen either one?
Yeah, I saw Barbie this weekend, yesterday actually, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was good.
Good.
Yeah, and I took Lexington, so I had to do a little research to see if it was appropriate for a 4-year-old. And after doing my research, I decided she would be great. She's only going to take it for exactly what it is, and that was dancing and singing, and there was lots of high moments that kept her entertained the full time. So we did Barbie, but I have a feeling that Jeff and I will make it to Oppenheimer in the next couple weeks here. We might have to figure out how to fit a date night in and do that one as well. And Shance, are you planning on Oppenheimer as well?
Probably once it comes out to stream at home.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Maybe for that one we might as well, but I don't know. Just the more I hear about it, the more I can't wait. That's my problem.
Yeah. It does look really good.
It always feels wrong to sneak away to a movie in the middle of summer, but I think that's kind of what you're supposed to do in summer as well. So I'm not going to say I was complaining one bit.
Well, we're going to have some 90 plus, maybe even 100 plus days coming up. And those days when it's really humid and 100 degrees outside and the sun is blaring down, a nice air-conditioned theater is the place to be, I think.
There you go. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off
All right.
today here with our show. So welcome back for another edition here of Paladin Financial Talk. And I couldn't be more excited to have our guest with us today. So our guest today, as I said earlier, is Shancy Kelly. She is a licensed master-level psychologist, and her day job, her title, is a behavioral health therapist. So, Shance, for all of our listeners here, just tell us what a psychologist is, and in basic terms, it's the study of what?
Well, I would say in basic terms, it's the study of the human mind and its functions and kind of how your behaviors are affected by your environment and the things going on.
And so as you apply that to your day job and what you do, talk a little bit about behavioral health therapist and who you're working with and what is your goal of working with your patients?
Yeah, so my current role, I work in a children's psychiatric hospital. So I work with kids and their families. A lot of the kids are in psychiatric hospital because they're suicidal or, something pretty big. So really my goal in the hospital is to kind of get them back to their baseline to where they're not suicidal anymore, or at least feeling better about things. But I would say therapy in general, I kind of like to think of it as, so I'm someone who likes to cook. So Nikki, have you ever cooked like a big, Thanksgiving Day meal or like holiday meal of some sort?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so picture it, you have this plan to begin with. You're like, okay, I've got the ingredients, I've got this plan. And then a little bit into it, you walk into your kitchen and your kitchen's a total like train wreck disaster. The turkey's not in the oven yet. The trash is overflowing. There's like flour and stuff strewn everywhere.
Shancy,
it's just a mess, and it's overwhelming.
I feel like you're a fly on my kitchen wall when it comes to me doing some meal prep here. I feel like you've been around. Okay, I interrupted you, but okay, I can picture it well.
Well, I swear I haven't hacked your Ring doorbell or anything, but anyway, a lot of people could relate to that, right? And okay, so in walks your therapist, right? Because who doesn't want their therapist at their Thanksgiving? Okay, so thank you, Tony. That was a joke. Anyway, therapist looks around and they're like, yeah, yikes, this is a mess, right? But what can we do to make this better? So maybe the first thing, we need to take out the trash, put a new trash bag in. Okay, that's step one. Then we should probably get the turkey in the oven. That's going to take the longest. Okay, and then, we look around after a while, we've done all this work, and the meal is ready, the table's set, and you made it somehow, right? Your guests are about to arrive, and things are okay. So that's kind of what I like to think of the role of a therapist in your life as, and what therapy can be.
Shancy, that was such a good description, so applicable to everybody, right? There's whether you're in the kitchen or you have the garage or whatever it might be. And so thank you for bringing that down to just very basic imagery.
So Shancy, if I'm going to prepare a big meal for the family and all my relatives and I need help cleaning the kitchen and getting the turkey in the oven, you're saying you'll come over and do that for me?
Hey, happy to help. Yeah, happy to help.
That's what a therapist does? I had no idea.
This might be a new genre of therapy, is kitchen therapy or something here. Shantz, you're onto something
kitchen
here.
Kitchen therapy, I like it.
Hey, I know. I like that a lot.
No, it's a good analogy, though. Seriously, that's great.
A little bit about Shancy and I. And Shancy, certainly add more to that if you feel like you want to add something. But you did such a nice job of describing what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So Shancy and I are homegrown Kansas kids, and I say that because it's only appropriate to start with a study from the University of Kansas that I found. So University of Kansas is based in Lawrence, Kansas, and I have to point out that Shancy and her brother and her sister all attended University of Kansas, and so I think she probably has some fairly fond memories of Lawrence. And so I brought this article just for her. It's actually pretty good, though. Fond memories in Lawrence, Shancy, is that a fair thing to say?
Fond memories, definitely. Go Jayhawks.
So published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships by one of the associate professors at KU, and it's actually a communications professor, Jeffrey Hall. So he stated that maintaining close relationships is the most important work we do in our lives, and most people on their deathbeds agree with that. And I bring that up because for the last month, we have been talking about relationships, and we have taken a break this summer and just made it a little more lighthearted on our podcast. And it's been all about just lifestyle. And like I said, this last month has been on relationships. And so Jeff and I started a few weeks ago and talked about couples and how important it is as they go into retirement to make sure they've had communication and they have the same expectations of what they think they want retirement to look like. And then we moved into the conversation on friendships and how that might be impactful as you age as well. And then last week we went into the love languages and how the love languages can be relationship, romantically important, but also workplace or friendships, or applies in a lot of different areas. And so why I wanted Shancy with us here today is we've talked all about these relationships, but I want Shancy to bring this home to more of the science and the kind of the study of psychology and of relationships, and her being able to put some of those tips and statistics and science behind what we've been talking about. And so I had sent Shancy a couple things in preparation for our conversation, and one of them was this article from this Jeffrey Hall, the associate professor from KU. And so going back to, it's important, as his quote was there before, most people on their deathbeds agree that relationships are probably the most important work that we do in our lives. And so, Shancy, I'm going to turn to you on this one for you to talk to us just a little bit more about that that statement from him. And what are your thoughts as a psychologist?
Yeah, I think relationships are definitely extremely important in our lives, really throughout the lifespan. Positive relationships can be as important to your health and well-being as nutrition and physical activity, which is kind of surprising. But, the relationships, they might evolve, and you maintain this strong social network as you age, and it can actually contribute to a longer and healthier life. But I think to really answer this question, we have to talk about loneliness too, as kind of the opposite of having these relationships. So the American Psychological Association says that loneliness may be more detrimental to health than obesity, and loneliness has been found to be a predictor of functional decline, so like a decrease in physical and or cognitive functioning, and either a predictor of death. So it's kind of serious. So social isolation, loneliness, lack of adequate support are social conditions that tend to take a toll on your psychological well-being and your physical health too. And these are particularly important among older people, especially like people who are retired. And so with an increasing aging population, the effects of loneliness are anticipated to increase. So yeah, definitely things to think about and things to talk about what can be done about that.
I didn't even set Shancy up for this, but I feel like everything she just said, Tony, was a culmination of what we have been talking about for the last 3 months of aging well.
Really?
Yes, and we've talked about nutrition and, being around people and having a community. It's everything that we have been talking about for 3 months. And so thanks,
It really
Shancy.
is. And social isolation for retirees, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the biggest challenges people face and seniors face as they retire.
Yeah, definitely.
So I came upon this article from the University of Kansas when I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast. And I don't know if either of you are familiar with Mel Robbins. And so I just have to ask. First of all, I think she's fantastic, and she's completely engaging and entertaining, and she is in your face, and so I am okay with that style. Not everybody is, but have either of you listened to the Mel Robbins podcast?
I have, and it's because you told me about Mel Robbins once.
I did?
Yeah.
Okay,
You
how about
mentioned
that?
Mel Robbins to me, and it wasn't that long ago. You might have brought Mel up on a recent show or just in passing somehow. So, yeah.
Well, she has, I have this screenshot, Instagram and Facebook. I don't even know where it's from, but she is saying one of my favorite quotes, and it's her in the background. And so it must be one that she uses. And so I share it with everybody. And so I don't know if it was part of that or not. But how about you, Shance? Are you familiar with Mel Robbins?
No, I wasn't before you sent me her podcast. So I did listen to the one you sent me, but I hadn't heard of her before. But she's really interesting to listen to.
She is. I feel like I said this too. Had a text string going with another peer of mine today, and I said the last couple shows that I have listened to have just they've just been exactly what I needed in that moment. And so this friend of mine was going through something, and I said, you need to just go listen to the whatever Mel Robbins podcast is that pops up first. I guarantee it'll speak to what you're going through right now. And whether it does or doesn't, I don't know. It seems like she's always in the right spot just when I need it. So one of the things for our listeners, if you're not familiar with Mel Robbins, is her degree or her background is on the legal side of things. And many probably would say her claim to fame was she was the anchor when the George Zimmerman situation was going on, and she covered it as the legal analyst for CNN. And so many might recognize her face, but just don't know who she is. But since then, she's had a number of other shows and I think podcasts, and she had a phenomenal outpouring of support as she did her first TED Talk. And so she just has created this name for herself and this space for herself as an inspirational speaker now. And now I think she's probably published multiple books, and she has an extremely successful podcast. So I enjoy her from that perspective, but she makes her money, like I said, from book sales and inspirational speaking and that side of things at this point. So what I like about her and the article that we went through is, or kind of the things that I like generally about her, is she always provides a framework to something, and then she follows it. So she's a really easy person to listen to because she tells you what she's going to tell you, and then here's your framework, and then go to town. And so Anyway, so she's a good one to listen to, and that's where I picked up on some of the information that we started talking about that University of Kansas study. But that study goes on to say more than just what we had talked about. Shantz, I think I had sent that to you ahead of time. Go through, okay, perfect. Go through, I believe she gave us some like hours and talked about friendship, of how much work it is to create friendship, especially as you're aging, and tell us what that looked like and kind of your take on it as a psychologist.
Yeah, so it was really interesting that, and I read the study by Jeffrey Hall out of KU as well. And so what he says is it takes 50 hours to go from acquaintance to casual friend, 90 hours from casual friend to friend, and 200 hours from friend to close friend. And so there's a model of social support. It's called the convoy model of social support. And I think this study is kind of like touching on that. And a lot of people have probably heard of it at some point in one way or another. But it's about, there's kind of 3 rings of social support in an individual's life. So one ring is, think of it as like a small ring, really close to you. These are very close friends, family members too, people who are super important to you, and you really need them, and you share these really intimate details of your life. And then another ring kind of in the middle, these are friends, people also really important, but you kind of have fun together. You maybe don't share like the most serious parts of your life with them. And then the outer ring is more casual. These could be neighbors you aren't super close to, but close to, or coworkers, things like that. So this article talks about to go from acquaintance, so this would be maybe not necessarily in this convoy model, to being in the outer ring. That takes 50 hours. And then to go into that middle ring, it takes 90 hours from there. And then to go into that close ring, it takes 200 hours, which is a lot of time. What do you guys think of all the time it takes to make a close friend?
Well, you think about, when do adults have great segments of time like that, and you don't typically.
Right, and people might think, well, there's, that 90 hours isn't much. There's 24 hours in a day, but you're talking about time spent with that person. And so when you break it down like that, that is a lot. I mean, I have to think of jeepers. How long does it take for me to spend that much time with my wife and family, let alone somebody outside for friendship?
Yeah, exactly. You can see why in your work environment, you gravitate, or you end up spending time with your coworkers and having almost sometimes great relationship with your coworkers. Well, you're building those because you sit next to each other, and you continue to foster those naturally, because that's where your feet are. And where you don't get to do that as an adult in very many other places, or as an adult, you find that maybe your kid's soccer team or things like that, because you're sitting on the sidelines, or the baseball game. And so that's how people make their friendships as you start to age. But think about when people, as they truly move into retirement, what if they move to a new city where their kids are? Or what if they move into a new home and you take them out of the environment? How long it takes them to be comfortable in, say, the 55 plus community, or the whatever it might be. They choose places oftentimes that they know people already, so they get their footing a little bit faster. And I don't know, that's my perspective as I hear you say some of that, Shantz.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's kind of important to, if you're trying to make a friend, because these social supports are very important, is kind of look around and like take stock. Who's an acquaintance right now? Maybe it's the neighbor next to you. Maybe you work somewhere or volunteer somewhere, and there's someone that you're kind of like getting along with, and maybe like try to start putting in some of the hours to get more into the friend zone or close friend zone.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I'll bring it back to something I said, and not to be a broken record here, but as people move into retirement and they are thinking about making transition, potentially from moving or traveling more or whatever it might be, taking stock of, for me to have the relationships around me, if I do make one of those moves, what will that take for us to get established and to find our our place, and how am I going to do that if I know that I need somebody in the 90 hours and the 200-hour range and some of that. So planning for something like that isn't such an odd thing when you start to hear tangible numbers like you've given us here, Shancy.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And, as you guys are working in your careers and stuff, I mean, how much time each week do you think you spend with friends or even just talking to friends?
Yeah, a lot, especially in the workplace. That's why I think when people retire, they don't realize, they're used to all that social interaction through their jobs. And once that goes away, that's tough because, those people don't necessarily have time to get together with you every day once you're retired.
Yeah, I can certainly think, Shancy, of pockets of where I could create friends, but it's 3 or 4 pockets. And as sports change, it might change to another setting or a group of people. But outside of that, there is not a lot of social time in my life right now, just based on the age of my kids.
Yeah, it makes it so hard. I know. It's like, you really got to carve out that time. But I think it depends on each person, like some people need more social interaction than others. So kind of up to each individual person, like, what do I need? Do I need social activity once a week, or is it more like once a month for me? And then I feel good, so something to think about.
Absolutely. So I think our point at this, what we've covered up to this point, is the media and mental health care professionals and others tell us the benefits of a relationship. And Shancy, you did such a nice job of introing us on the benefits of it. But as we have now uncovered, it is not easy to do, and it is especially hard for aging adults. And being mindful of something like this as we talk about transition. So we've talked about the benefits, we've talked about the time that it takes to put into creating relationships, but let's narrow the focus just a little bit more and continue on that conversation of the aging population, since that's who Paladin Financial primarily serves. And so there was another article that I came upon, and I think it was titled, and this is where I mess things up from time to time, but aging into the web of life or something of that nature. But it was about kinship is, I think, the words that they use, but basically saying that you spend all this time early in life focused on yourself, and you're always looking in, and you guys can probably relate to this. Most human nature is, people, what do they think of me? I enter a room, are they me is the conversation. But what happens as you continue to age is you turn to the outside world, and it's more important. Your focus actually changes to the interconnectedness that you might have with the others around you, and that just actually happens naturally. And so it is part of the study of gerontology, it's part of the study of psychology, it's part of all of the sciences that go along with human beings and communication and relationships. So I don't know, Shancy, if you feel like there's more to add to this. I know that you're working right now in your profession with children, but maybe there is something that you feel like you can add as it relates to your studies and some of your experiences elsewhere.
Yeah, and I did have a chance to read this article, and it was interesting. And one thing they kind of talked about in it was Carl Jung. Some people pronounce it Young. I don't know. I pronounce it Carl Jung. But he was the first in Western psychology to recognize that in midlife, we kind of begin to outgrow our ego-based identity, and we start to be pulled towards a broader, deeper sense of self that is kind of both individual but also collective, so involving those around us and our communities. And so I kind of looked up some other stuff related to this, and kind of interesting. So Jung believed that between the ages of about 56 to 83 offers each of us an opportunity to make the process of aging a positive and life-enhancing experience. And so most of the time when talking about aging in Western culture, there's kind of this implication that the best way to age is to do everything we can to continue doing what we've always done, what we've been doing up to this point, and also to look equally young while doing it. So in walks Botox. Just kidding. But
I'm smiling. I guess you can't see that. I was smiling there.
Sure.
Good. Aging really offers each of us, the opportunity to kind of redefine ourselves and our relationships with others. And so maybe this is kind of after retirement, or maybe you're not fully retired, but slow down your work and things like that. And you can kind of take stock of your life and think of it as a stage of life where you get to dive deeper into self-discovery and what do you enjoy? What's fun for you? What's important for you? Maybe it's doing fun activities like playing pickleball, things like that, or spending time with your kids and grandkids and mentoring them through life based on your experience, instead of kind of holding tightly onto the life you have been living. Kind of look for something new and exciting and, make it a positive experience.
Again, I did not tee up Shancy for this, but that was a perfect segue here. So we are moving away from this last month on relationships, and we are going to do the next 5 weeks, I think, in the month of August is all about happy retirement. So I would say what Shancy just said there was the perfect segue into where are we going next. And part of that is transition. Part of it is the good stuff. Like if we're going to retire, let's throw a happy retirement party and all the things that go along with that. And so I'm excited for this next phase and some of the things that we're going to talk about just because of what you started to describe there, Shancy. Shancy, is there anything else from your studies or your day job of being a therapist that you want to share with our listeners that you think they would find value in?
I think just find a way to connect with others around you. Again, whether that's through some kind of sport activity, something like that, or asking your neighbor if she wants to go get her nails done, or, things like that, or, being involved in your church or volunteer activities. Find a way to kind of be socially engaged, and it's really good for your mental and physical health.
Absolutely. Well, we certainly appreciate your extra expertise and some of the things that you have shared with us here. This is a fun conversation. I didn't share this at the beginning of the show. You guys, I came up with a new title for myself. I feel like I was, kind of trying to figure out who I am at Paladin Financial since I moved over here in January, and I decided Director of Happiness is who I should be.
Wow.
I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
wow.
I thought this is a perfect time to make that announcement.
I don't think Jeff wants to give up that title.
Oh.
I think Jeff is probably the one that wants that title.
Well, I am now the self-proclaimed Director of Happiness for Paladin Financial. I just need to get myself a little nameplate, maybe put it on our website now.
Yeah.
So as we talk about happiness, that is our next focus for the month of August. And Shancy, again, thank you so much for being our guest. Tony, anything that you want to add before we wrap up as well?
No, I can't believe she brought up Carl Jung, or Jung, like you say. I read a couple of his books. I read a couple of his books in college, but that was interesting.
Cool.
Synchronicity was always one I found interesting. Because because Sting was really into Jung and wrote his band The Police did a whole album loosely based on the book Synchronicity by Carl Jung. So anyway, a little music trivia for trivia
absolutely
fans.
Could be a whole nother show for us here, Tony.
But
yeah, no kidding.
But Shancy, I think this is great, and obviously relationships are important. I had no idea how many hours it took to develop a relationship. I think that varies on the people too. The right two people might not take quite as long to get to that level, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, the Jeff and Nickys of the world. I mean, they met
extroverts,
5-10 minutes tops, and they were close friends, right?
Well, thank you guys again for being here. I have nothing. I love this part of my job and being able to do this with Tony and having guests like Shancy on the show here. Well, if you are interested in having a conversation with Paladin Financial, we'd love to speak with you and come in for a complimentary consultation. You can reach us at 651-842-8406 or go to our website at financialpaladin.com and request a complimentary consultation. All right, that's another episode of Paladin Financial Talk. We appreciate your time. Have a great one. All right.